few more. Now that we have our security feature letting you know it's being recorded. Good morning, come on in. Come on in. I see a couple people connecting to audio, so we will give it one more minute and we will get started. All righty. Well, good morning, everybody. So nice to see your face on what I like to call Friday Eve. I'm LaShawn Gordon, the Director of Membership and Engagement here at UPHS. Most of you all I know, but if I haven't met you before, welcome, welcome, welcome. I also have my colleague and our Executive Director, Amber Tynan, with us this morning. And so we are super excited to have our partners from both the city and the county. We work with them hand in hand, kind of working out CHSP with our members, as well as those that are looking to get CHSP funded. So we actually partner with them quite a bit. They have a very, very detailed presentation for you all today. And at the end of the presentation, there will be time to ask questions. We're also going to upload this to our Facebook page and YouTube channel. And then if you just have some one-on-one support, I know a couple of you questions. I know a couple of you all have already reached out. We'll be happy to schedule some time to sit down and meet about that. So I want to go ahead and introduce you to Abby Sanders, Melinda Harris, and I am looking for Virginia. She was trying to come back in the room, but we also have Virginia with us as well from the city. So I'm gonna go ahead and let them get started. And again, if you need anything, just put it in the chat. So Abby and Melinda, take it away.
Hey everybody, so I will share my screen. Virginia is leading up the financial reporting, and if she's not on yet, we'll just jump in with mine. 1 second. Can you all see that?
No, move it to the other screen, Abby. There you go.
So I'm Abby Sanders, and I started in this position at the end of February. So I've had the chance to work with some people on this aspect of the reporting, but I haven't talked to all of you guys. So I'm excited to continue to get to know you if you're a current CHSP agency, and if you're not, then just working with you in the future. But we're going to focus on the narrative reporting first, and then Virginia with the city and Melinda will talk about financial reporting, because that's more their wheelhouse, and I wouldn't be able to explain it very well to anybody. So it just wouldn't work out well. But the first thing is that the reporting periods are, we've got 4 quarters that we report on. And so there's the first 3 quarters are pretty much quarter specific information. And then the year-end report is where you're summarizing everything that you do. And these quarters represent about 3 months, and the reports due about a month after the quarter ends. And from year to year, this is a very consistent schedule. So it's not like, hey, the report's due on January 25th, which could be a Friday, so we're going to move it to a Monday. It's going to be January 25th, whether that's a Saturday or Sunday, and just however you guys can get it in, just to keep it pretty scheduled so that everyone knows what's happening on our end. Some of these slides might be really intuitive, like login information. Others might be a little more difficult, but I would suggest just saving the chspportal.org to a bookmark in your computer. And so this is where you'll go every month to report. And the login is at the very top. And so got the username and password there. If you forget your password, you can follow directions. And if you forget your username, you can reach out to us, because we can look in the system and try to help you find that. So if there's ever an issue, we we don't know your password, we can't get that information, but if you need to know your username might be different than your email, that's something that we can always help with. So the first thing you're going to do every time you start a report is just click on this Q report icon in the portal. It's on the home screen, and you'll click start a report, which is highlighted. And this presentation will be available as a PDF after the fact. So if you ever need to reference it, it'll be available, as will Melinda's presentation, and then this recorded webinar will be available wherever Amber and LaShawn decide to house it. But once you click start a report, this pop-up will come up, and it should automatically toggle to your correct agency. And then one of the most important pieces of this screen is just making sure you have the right funding year. That seems silly because we wish we could just say, oh, I accidentally submitted for the wrong year. Can you guys fix it? But we can't. So if you're putting all of your information for last year's fiscal year, so 1920, and you submit your year-end report for the wrong one, you're going to have to go in and redo that whole thing. You can copy and paste to a new one, but it is a little bit frustrating. And so just keep an eye on that. You're making sure you're submitting for the correct year. And so right now that would be fiscal year 2020, 2021. And then you'll select your team, which is one of 10 options. So if you're children's services, it's going to be team 1. Community support is team 2, and it's a drop-down menu. So just make sure that the right program corresponds to the team that you're under. And then the reporting period, again, if it's quarter 1, put quarter 1, because if you submit for the wrong quarter, you're going to have to redo the whole thing. We're going to try to look in to see if there's anything we can do on the back end to make it easier, but for now, that's kind of where we're at. So once you start the report, you're going to be able to navigate throughout the report through this progress navigation bar to the right of the screen. And so you can close in and out of this button throughout, but before you can submit, you're going to have all the subsections completed, which is indicated by that green check mark. If you need to move between them, you can, but it's going to show up green once you've saved it and it's completed. So we're going to jump into the report itself. So the first section of the report, section 1, is your person served. And this is where you're reporting on the demographics and income guidelines. And if you were to scroll down on this page, you would get to those income guidelines, which is section B. But here, we want to make sure that you're providing demographics for unduplicated persons served. And so if in quarter 2, I've served LaShawn, Amber, and Melinda, but I also served Amber and Melinda in quarter 1, I'm only going to report demographic information for LaShawn or whoever I didn't say for quarter 1. So you're only representing that specific quarter here, and all of the subsection totals must match, which is gender, age, and then income. The only one that doesn't have to match is ethnicity and where it's the Hispanic person served. But all the other ones, the numbers have to be the same, or it's going to pop up as an error message and you won't be able to move forward. And then the top part, which is like pounds served quarterly and estimated number of meals, that's pretty specific to Second Harvest. So it may require you to put something there, but obviously put 0, and that's totally okay. And if you don't have anything to report for say you're a program that only runs in the summer, so you're not doing anything in quarter 1 and quarter 2, and we know that that's in your contract, you do have to fill out these reports, but you can go through and just put zeros on everything. And that's not anything that's against you, counted against you. It's just that we need to know, okay, we have received something from everybody so that we know what the baseline is and what's going on. So next section, this is specific for programs who receive funding in our Team 10 Promise Zone category. And they're the only people that need to complete this section. So it's in your contract that you need to do this section. And it's got to match the total number of unduplicated people that you listed in the previous section. And one thing to note is that if you're a program that's not within the promise zone, but you're consistently serving a large number of people that live in the promise zone, it might be worth considering applying for promise zone funding in the future. If 99% of the people you serve are in a promise zone, but you're not getting that funding, just in the next funding cycle, look into that, because it might make sense for you to be a part of that category. So the last portion of person served is going to be your anticipated versus actual year to date. And so in section D, for the anticipated number, this is going to be the number that you stated within your contract. So throughout the whole time that you're working on these reports, you're going to want to have your contract open to make sure that this report is reflecting what you've said you're going to do in your contract. We don't say that because we're like, we don't know or do rest, but it's really like you have set the groundwork for yourself very well within your contract. And so it's pretty easy, and it's easier for you to just follow along what's in there. And so if you say we're going to serve 40 people with car seats this year, Lutheran Social Services does Kids Safe, and so they provide car seats to people, and so they're thinking we're going to get 40. The cumulative number is going to be how many they've done so far. And so if they've been able to serve 20 people in Q1 and Q2, we're going to put 20 there. But if they only serve 10 in Q2, that's what's going to be reflected in their first reporting numbers. So this is Q1 and Q2 if you're doing a Q2 report, but the previous slides were just kind of focused on that specific quarter. Are there any questions within these couple of sections? Because I know that we consistently go back to people on section D, and then as well as the first section on demographics.
Abby, I think there was a question on the trans female and trans male.
Okay.
From Justin.
Justin, let me
It's in the chat. He's wanting to know if there was any plans to update the demos this year.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I know we've been working with Amber and LaShawn, as well as the city, on some like race and equity measures within our reporting systems, as well as the city. The mayor has a clear focus on the LGBTQ community. And so we're going to be updating this. And so I'll make that note as that we include that as we move forward. But yeah, great question. There are going to be changes in that regard. And once those changes are made, it probably won't be mid-cycle, but we wouldn't do it between like Q2 and Q3. But hopefully the next time around that we're doing, starting from scratch with reporting, we're hoping to have all those changes made. So thank you for that. Any other questions in these sections? I can't see the chat. So if there's anything in the chat.
You do have
I do have options. Okay, I see it now. It just wasn't coming up right away. Let me see. Okay, I see Sylvia had a question about promise zone first time applications denied for failure to provide census data. We'll look into that and see what that looks like to move forward, but that's something that we mentioned this past. Sorry, someone was calling in. So I'll figure out how to address that question and follow back up with you if that's okay. Go back to. Okay, so no other questions for person served. We good?
I'm sorry, Abby. This is Justin. I do have one more question. I couldn't type it in the chat quick enough. When kind of follow up to Sylvia's, but when reporting the census data, is that for the current the location that the services have been received, or is it maybe the last permanent address of homeless individuals, if they even know their address?
I say it's the last permanent address or wherever they're at. or wherever they say they live in, would be where we would report that data on.
Thank you.
Justin, I'm gonna,
And if they don't know where they lived, just report the census of delivery of service, their census tract.
I think that's, if that's all you can get, then I'd say yes. Go with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but I'll follow up with some census tract questions too, and I'll get back with you and Sylvia about this.
Thanks.
So the next section is program accomplishments, and this is the implementation timeline. The first part of this is section A, and this is what we report on in our quarterly reports. Section A2 is only in the year-end report. And so this is what's going to pop up right away, but we'll dig into them a little bit deeper in the next couple of slides. So section 2 is your program accomplishments. And here is where you again are referring to your contract. So your task, activity, and output is going to be the exact language that's in your program implementation timeline chart in the contract. And that should be roughly about attachment A of the contract. And so once you've completed your contract, filled it out, we get a copy, you have the copy with all this information. If you scroll down past all the signatures, there's where your attachments will be. And so you're pulling this language directly from there for this, specifically the task, activity, output. So again, this is where you might say, this year we're going to give 40 car seats to low-income families, and that's your target. But your specific achievement field should list exactly what you're doing. And so that might be, this year we have given 20 car seats up to this point. Some people have multiple things to report in their program implementation timeline. Other people may just have one specific output. And that again is coming directly from your contract. And so if you need to report multiple, you'll have multiple to include. If you're just reporting on one figure, that's what's going to be reported. And you're on here, and Virginia or Melinda can correct me if I'm wrong, because again, I am newer to this, the reporting, is that you're talking about here like everything you've done so far. Is that correct? Or are we putting only we've only served what's happening in the quarter?
For quarterly, it would be what's occurred in the
Okay,
quarter.
so if you've done 10 this quarter, you'll put your specific achievement as we've done 10 here. But for year end is where you're going to put all of that in the next slide. And then section A2 is your outcome measurement framework. Again, this is only available in the year end report. So the last report that you're doing, this is where this comes from, and it's exactly from your contract and attachment C, which is your program logic model and outcome measure framework. You're copying and pasting the program outcomes and the measurable indicators exactly from that contract, but then the specific achievement is what you've actually done. So if you say you're going to do 40 car seats, but you only do 29 the whole year, your specific achievement would be that 29 that whole year. But if you can put percentages in there as well, this depends a lot on the specific agency. And I know that we've talked about uniformity inside conversations, but here, we're comparing apples to oranges in a lot of ways. So your reporting framework and measurements is going to look different than the next person's. And that's okay, because your contract states different things. And so whatever makes sense in your contract to report, that's what you're going to do here. Do we have any questions about these two sections? Is there anything in the chat? There will be time for questions at the end of this too. So there's nothing now, that is okay. So then section 2, program accomplishments, obstacles and challenges. Here, you just highlight specific challenges and what you're doing to make it through those challenges. So last year, a lot of people, obviously were impacted by COVID significantly. And so if you were a nonprofit that was serving elderly people, but for Q3, you weren't able to see any elderly people because they couldn't come to your service, you were closed. This is where you'd say like, hey, we're doing our best with outreach. We haven't been able to see anybody in person. We're hoping that in Q4, we can pivot to help maybe reach them through online services. And that's what you'd say there. So we get that, life isn't consistent and things happen. And so as long as you're saying might be why we're not able to reach what we've said we hope to reach, just say what's going on and tell us what you're doing to try to get over that hump. Section C is your major accomplishments. And then those are specifically like collaborative accomplishments. So if you're hoping to network with more organizations to expand your reach, if Second Harvest is working with a lot of smaller food banks, if Legal Services is also trying to connect people that they're working with who may also have a need for hunger, they're trying to really work hand in hand with Second Harvest. This is where they're going to say, hey, we've been able to do X, Y, and Z with all of these other partners, or hey, we've identified this partner as someone we could work with, and this is what we're trying to do to make it happen. If you don't have anything to report in here, don't try to make something up. But like, just tell us what's actually happening, who you're reaching out to. That's what we want to see here. Just because, we're stronger when we're together. And so if you've got multiple people you're working with outside of your own organization, you're probably able to do even better work than you're able to do on your own. Then section D, this is very specific to organizations that had a citizen review team finding during the evaluation period. And so if you have applied for CHSP funding consistently throughout the years, and your fourth year, the CRT, who reviews all the applications and makes funding recommendations, says, hey, Justin, your financial stuff has been kind of weird the last year. We've noticed it. We're still going to fund you, but we've got a question about this certain area. What are you going to do to resolve it? And that is going to be in your contract with specific language to say, hey, we've noticed with Justin that this is out of whack. I'm sorry to pick on you, Justin. I think, yeah, you're doing great. You're still here. So things are up to speed. But if there was an issue, we would say, hey, here's what's going on. It's in your contract, so you have to report on it and just tell us what you're doing to resolve those concerns. But if Justin is free and clear and has no issues with his report, and the CRT is like, he's doing a great job, we don't have any problems, all he's going to do is click, the agency does not have a CRT finding or serious concern for this reporting period. And that will also be in your contract. It will say, no findings, you're good, report that there's nothing going on. But then after this section is if you do have a finding, you're going to have to discuss any obstacles that you're facing in resolving that. And so if Justin's got an issue and he is like, hey, we hired a new finance person, they're also not very great or whatever, this is our obstacle. Again, Justin's doing fine. He's just the only person I can see that is not city, county, or UPHS right now. So he's who I'm targeting. But so that you'd also describe there what's going on. And then the last slide is verification. And so when everything's complete, you've got green arrows up and down the side. You're going to fill this out. Say who it's prepared by, get the signature of your agency director, and then submit it. And we're going to go in there as soon as we can. We usually don't look at these until after the 25th. So if your report, Q1's reports due like the end of December, or Q1 is finished the end of December, Q1's report is due January 25th. We're going to look at these a couple of days after the 25th. And we try to get to them as quick as we can. And then if we've got any questions or concerns, we'll reach out to you. But if you have any questions about the application or about submission or anything's come up, you can reach out to us, or Amber and LaShawn are readily available most of the time. I think they're great. I know LaShawn works with people very closely to help them get this up to speed. One key thing that I know I would love is if you got an agency contact person, make sure that they know they're the agency contact person, and that they're familiar with this, because sometimes I'll call an agency and I know people get switched around and change jobs. We'll call somebody and they'll say, oh, I didn't do anything on this, or I have no idea. Why don't you talk to so-and-so? You try to talk to so-and-so and they're like, oh no, talk to this other person. So it's really helpful if this contact person is the person that knows what's going on with the report, but also add people into your agency's like organizational chart within the CHSP portal. You can put additional people and their contact information. So if we don't get anyone through this person you've listed, we can contact others on the list. But that is verification. And then if there's any questions on this aspect, I will be happy to address them and probably pull Virginia or Melinda to help me out.
Hey, Abby, it's Justin.
Hey, Justin.
Kind of the whole section. I know you breezed past it with regards to the meal reporting, and that's mostly for second harvest, but is there a way to toggle that so that we can report meals distributed?
If you,
Not to create more work for anybody, and I know my COO is on here watching, but
if you guys have that information to report, then yes, put it in there. But if you don't, then that's where we say, like, you don't have to enter anything. Does that answer your question, or can you just?
yeah, I guess I don't remember. I see Sylvia put in the chat, they put it in the narrative. I don't remember if we were able to enter anything into that field, but
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
If you can't enter anything into that field, then that's fine too, and we can look into it. I know that our system, when we're going through these, we have a lot more access, obviously, and so I can enter stuff when I'm looking at it. So that's why I just assumed you guys probably could too. But if that's something that you have to report and is in your contract to report, then we can open that field up. If it's not in the contract and you just want to put it in the narrative, like Sylvia, that's great too. But I can ask about that question.
Okay, you answer my question in multiple ways, and I think Dot has her hand raised.
Dot, you can go ahead. Are you able to unmute yourself?
I've already
Great,
unmuted.
that's perfect.
Yes. This is a county workshop or city county workshop, because all of the application information seems the same, even though we are funded from a city CHSP grant.
Yeah, so we work hand in hand with the city, and Virginia's on, and she's going to be talking about the financial stuff. The way we split this was that they were like, Abby, you can do this part. And I said, great. But the CHSP portal, you're reporting the same information for the city and the county within this document. And so if your contract is with the city's going to be reviewing your application.
Yes, everything seems the same that you've gone over today.
Yeah.
That we have been reporting on in our quarterly reports.
Yeah, it should be. If your contract's underneath the city, you're reporting on the same exact thing. They're just the one that's approving, and we have the same exact access. But if an agency, their contract is with the county, then we're going to be the ones that are going through and approving their reports. And so we'll talk to the people that are county contracts, the city will talk to the people that have city contracts, because those are going to be who you're reporting to on your financial information as well. So
so I should need to go through the workshop again.
No, this is a one and done thing right now, for just an overview of the portal. But again, we're not doing a new funding cycle until next year. And so this isn't necessarily the mandatory workshop you have to do. This is just another workshop made available to answer any questions people might be having with problems with reporting or whatnot. So this is just something that UPHS saw a need and they said, hey, can you help us fill it? And we said, absolutely. So
Okay, thanks.
yeah, absolutely. Anybody
Abby, it
else?
looks like Darren has his hand up.
Darren, go ahead and answer and ask your question. Okay, I toggled over so I could see your face.
All right, yeah, just real quick for the year-end report
Yes.
for the demographics. Now, is for the year end, is that cumulative, or once again, are you just doing the final quarter's amount?
Trying to toggle over there. So Virginia, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So your year-end report is going to be everybody. That is why when we find an error in like maybe say first, second, or third quarter, we usually put it back in progress so it can be fixed, because that is honestly, that's the easiest way to export and import data into the year-end report. But yes, it would be everybody.
That's it, just making sure. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Any other questions? And again, this whole step-by-step thing will be a PDF for people to work through. So hopefully, we try to put as much as we possibly could into this, so that if you don't have anybody sitting next to you, you can still go through it pretty quickly. Well, with that, thank you guys for listening to me for so long. I'm gonna stop my screen share, and I think Virginia will then share hers to go through with Melinda.
You need me to, Virginia, or?
Please.
Okay.
I had to join through the iPhone, everybody. My laptop decided to go through an update, so.
LaShawn, I can't share.
Give me 1 second. All right, you should be good.
Well, okay. Can y'all see that? Can y'all see anything yet?
Yes.
Melinda, you just closed out of it.
Okay, I'm trying to
Click back on that PowerPoint that you had up.
Yeah. There we go. And I can't.
And just say from beginning, should be able to work.
Why is it not? Okay. Can you see it now?
We can.
Okay.
You might just want to maximize it.
There we go. Is that better?
And start from the beginning.
Okay. That's the beginning.
Yeah, but if you want to click the top where it says from beginning, that should work, Melinda.
Where?
Just below file, there's that little from beginning slide.
I see it now. Okay. Okay. We're basically, me and Virginia are going to go over the reporting requirements for the CHSP for the city and the county, the fiscal piece, the financial piece. Your first slide indicates, it gives you a brief summary of what CHSP is. The CHSP is basically a collaboration between the city of Tallahassee and the Leon County. It serves all the human service agencies in the surrounding community. The funding is actually allocated through a grant review process, which is a team of citizens, volunteers that meet together usually once every 2 years to review, rank, and award funding to the applicant agencies. You'll hear from time to time the acronym CRT, which refers to the Citizens Review Team. We recruit the volunteers through partnerships with neighborhood associations, local universities, and area businesses, churches, civic groups, and professional associations, among others. Basically, I'm not going to read the slide verbatim, but basically the role of the CHSP staff, we advise the CRT teams and we provide overall administrative support for the CRT teams. The CRT teams make the decisions collectively together on a consensus basis for the awards that are provided to the agencies for funding. And that's pretty much the CHSP in summary. Virginia, do you have anything that you need to add to that?
No, ma'am.
And Virginia can actually go from the front to the next slide and start with the what we require for the reimbursement piece of it.
Okay, so it looks like the slide on the screen is the due dates. So all CHSP agencies are required to submit quarterly and year-end narrative reports. And the reporting periods and submission deadlines are not only in the contract, but they're outlined below. What's below is a lot more in detail than what's in the contract, but you'll see first, second, third, and year-end, as well as the reporting period. Is what we'll refer to as a timeline. And then you'll see the submission deadlines. On the next slide, all right, this looks like it's the reimbursement. Okay, so the grant funds are administered on a reimbursement basis. Therefore, proof of expenditures must be submitted for reimbursement. It's important to note that the Office of the City Auditors and Hub govern our entire grant process. So if your agency has special circumstances that hinder you from following these requirements, please reach out to your contract manager as soon as possible. We have had to make some efforts to try and get some agencies in. So just a couple, sorry, the phone's flashing. So a couple of notes just to let y'all know through reimbursement process. Payments will not be processed until all quarterly and year-end report requirements have been met. There are no exceptions. This means if you have not even started, yet alone submitted a quarterly report or year-end report, and your reimbursement ties with that time period, we are not processing your reimbursement until your report has been approved. On the report of expenditures and reimbursement requests, check the appropriate funding source. So this is the spreadsheet that we have you all complete. In the same spreadsheet, there are general specific cost categories. Please modify those to what's in your contract. So in your contract attachment, there's a method and amount of compensation, also what we refer to as your budget page. Just customize your spreadsheet to that. We've had a couple agencies that, they weren't aware that they thought they had to stick to what was in the spreadsheet, and that's not necessarily true. It's what's in your contract. So the only difference that you will notice between the partners is budget amendments. So with the county, their county contracts, no budget changes can be made unless a budget amendment is requested and approved in writing. And that's for anything a penny and over. With the city, we do have a general rule exception. Is that the agency can spend up to 10% above the cost category without obtaining prior approval. We are currently trying to, that's one of the things that we're in progress as, is we're trying to update the contract so that way everybody's on the same accord between the partners. On the next bullet, looks like E, when submitting the reimbursement request, we ask that you submit a brief cover letter on agency letterhead. This includes the amount of the request, and it is required by both of our accounting offices. It substitutes as an invoice, so we have to have this in order to submit a reimbursement. When submitting receipts, please ensure that the date of purchase, the items purchased, the vendor, everything like that is legible on the receipt. If we cannot read it, we cannot reimburse for it. I know there's a couple of vendors out there like Walmart, and there's a few other places that have that weird waxy paper on their receipts. Just make a copy of it, take a picture of it, whatever you can for your records. When you're attaching proof of expenditures, We do ask for itemized receipts, canceled checks, copies of checks, bank statements, program brochures, payroll records, invoices, whatever shows that that expenditure has been made, it's been paid, which is hence why this is a reimbursement process. Note that no excessive shipping fees, convenience fees, sales tax, tips, late fees, anything like that will be reimbursed. When claiming travel, this is kind of rare, especially with COVID, but when claiming travel or training, please include the appropriate documentation, brochures, itinerary, registration fees, hotel, food, etc. If you're an agency that has a per diem or mileage or travel forms, submit those. You don't have to submit all the itemized receipts if you have a travel form that your agency or company has you go through. If you have ongoing accounts such as Office Depot, submit the actual receipts of the purchased items or the billing statement. The billing statement itemizes everything versus the actual billing, the general billing statement. The general billing statement looks like your bank statement, basically, where it just shows the date a purchase was made and the amount. But we need to see everything, especially for those who have accounts such as that. When you're submitting, please organize them per your expenditures per your cost category. Again, this is a contract. It's different for each contract. If you only have 4 cost categories in your contract, organize them in that fashion. And if you will put a blank page of paper between the categories, so that way we know one is ending and one is beginning. It seems very minor, but when we're going through them and that's all we're doing, it can get very confusing and it can get mixed up. So we ask that, y'all organize it in that fashion, so that way it's easier for us to process and get that payment as soon as possible. Lastly, all invoices must be signed by the vendor and the agency representative. This includes payroll, contractual services, invoices, etc. I know the question has been occurring lately due to COVID. Will wet signature be required over electronic signature? No. So electronic signature is accepted by both partners. If you have the ability to wet sign in person and, scan it, fax it, email it over, whatever the case be, you can, but electronic signature is accepted. On the next slide, I believe, it breaks down the different contract manager partners. Okay, so for city pay request and contract related correspondence, we have an email address, humanservices@talgov.com. Leon County, if you have a pay request, please send it to Miss Melinda Harris. We have her name, phone number, and email right there. And if it's contract related, please send it to Abigail Sanders. Again, name, phone number, and email are right there. And that last one is just a helpful hint. If you're looking to download any of the CHSP reimbursement forms, you can download them at the portal, and we just kind of give you the steps right there. But that's really it, unless y'all have any questions as far as the reimbursements go.
So Virginia, you or Melinda can kind of talk to the itemized receipts a little bit. I know that was one of the things that was a issue last quarter, and then the bank statements.
Okay, I'll let Melinda back me up on that. So with the itemized receipts, again, we need something that shows, I can't think of something right now besides Walmart because I'm thinking of groceries. So if you go to Walmart and you get a bunch of office supplies, or you have an after school program, if you're buying snacks, if you're buying notebooks, school supplies, whatever the case be, we need to see the whole itemized receipt. There are some that email. Again, we need that. So there are some people that like to use Amazon. The receipt that you get from Amazon that's emailed to you that just shows like, thank you for your order, and it shows what you bought, how much, yada, yada. That's what we would need as an itemized receipt. For the expenditure, or excuse me, the proof of expenditure, we need the bank statement that correlates to that. It does not need to be the entire packet. I know some bank statements are novel. We've seen them. So all we really need is the transaction. So if there are a lot of agencies that do their payroll and they give us a copy of the check, or all they have are payroll for personnel. We really only need that one page that shows that payroll was issued. If it's on a credit card statement, the same thing. It just needs to be it needs to be that official statement, but it doesn't have to be the entire packet, just the one proof that it shows that the expenditure was made.
Yeah, it actually has to the bank statement itself has to actually come from the bank. It can't be a doctored document or a, like if you've cut from a page into another page. Anything that is on that statement that is not being reimbursed can be redacted. We do accept redacted statements. That is not an issue. We're basically just checking to see, as Virginia can tell me, that the transaction has cleared the account.
Virginia,
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Dot.
this wasn't specifically addressed, but we're coming close to the end of the fiscal year.
Yes, ma'am.
If because of circumstances during the year, there is a little left over in the budget, would that be carried forward or must it be returned?
That's a 2 answer. So if you leave your contract as it is, we call it just left on the table. It will not roll over. You don't get it back. It just stays in that fund that your contract was issued from. The second part of that is if you adjust your contract, we call it amendments. So it would be first, second, third, however many contract amendments. You can extend your program. You do have to approve why though. So we can reissue you a contract, and in that contract, you have to state that, and again, I can't even come up with an example right now because COVID is the biggest thing. So just prior to COVID, we would have a couple of programs that maybe between the time periods, they had a program still going on, and they would let us know that, and it would be put into their contract attachment. Of course, it has to go through an approval process, but if you are approved for a contract amendment, that timeline can be extended.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
So we wanted to leave some time for questions. Again, this is tools, tips, best practices, and timely because we know that the end of the year is going to be coming up. So we wanted to give our members an opportunity to have some time with the city and county team for firsthand information. So do we have any other questions?
LaShawn, I would like to add one thing in Virginia to this. If you in your contract, if you indicated that you would prefer to send your reimbursement request on a monthly basis, then please, at the end of every month, could you please submit those to me or Virginia or whomever, whichever party is getting your reimbursement request. If you've indicated quarterly, the same, because if you hold them to the end of the year, it makes for processes a little bit more lengthier than having to go through like on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis. Just, to make it easier on you, you wouldn't have to gather up all the receipts and the bank statements for the entire year. You could do it on your monthly and quarterly. I just want to reiterate that point, that if you have not, if you indicate something in your contract, please try to adhere to that request.
And to piggyback on that, guys, please remember that's a question in your application. It does ask if you're submitting your documentation in a timely manner. If you put yes and that's not accurate, we know. Everything is key logged into the portal. So please, please, please try to do the best you can by your contract deliverables.
Any other questions? All right. Well, we want to thank you all for joining us. I also thank the team at the city and the county. who are partners with UPHS. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. If you're needing some one-on-one support, please reach out and we're happy to sit knee to knee and do that. I know some of you all on the call are looking to write for CHSP next year, and we'll be happy to schedule some one-on-one time to talk that through with you. And I know both the city and the county staff is available as well to have those conversations if needed. So Amber just put in the chat, we'll make sure you get the presentation in the slides. You all be well, and we will see you soon. Bye, y'all.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Bye, and thank you.